دكتور أحمد.
السلام عليكم يا دكتور.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله، أخبارك إيه؟
الله بخير الله يسلمك. طبعا في عندنا الحين في حضور إن شاء الله راح يزيد أول ما تصير يعني بعد دقيقتين، وأبدأ إن شاء الله الساعة يعني بعد دقيقتين راح أبدأ ونبدأ السيناريو، وبعدين بس أقول لك ابدأ تقدر تبدأ إن شاء الله.
ماشي، طب أعمل شير دلوقتي ولا استنى؟
لا استنى شوي.
ماشي.
بس خليني أنا انتروديوس يو وبعدين تقدر تشير يور سكرين وتبدأ إن شاء الله.
ما فيش مشكلة.
في عندك دكتور ان شاء الله الساعه يعني بعد دقيقتين راح نبدا ونبدا السيناريو وبعدين بس اقول لك تقدر في عندك اعاده من عندك.
ماشي، طب أعمل شير دلوقتي ولا استنى؟
لا استنى.
ماشي.
دكتور في اعاده عندك في صوت بعيد ولا اوكي؟
تستنى دلوقتي؟ لا، هو كان موجود وراح، هو كان موجود من شوية وراح.
تمام، الصوت دلوقتي تمام.
كده مفيش إعادة. كده تمام.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everybody from different university, different countries, different nationality around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today in this webinar in ITAR, and also thank you who's joining us in YouTube as well. Today we have another keynote speaker. Actually, he is one of my close friends. We studied together in Portsmouth University in UK. Very knowledgeable doctor, and he know many staff in accounting. He is expert in data and many other stuff. Dr. Awad Ibrahim. Dr. Awad Ibrahim, he is a senior lecturer in accounting and financial management in Portsmouth University in the United Kingdom. He got his PhD from Portsmouth University in 2017 and his master in Cairo University in Egypt in 2012. Previously, his award taught Birkbeck College University of London, and Arab Open University in Egypt. Award published 11 research papers in international academic journals, and 3 accepted published at 3-star ABS ranked journals. Also award the Best Paper Award and the Award of Excellence for 2 of his papers. He is supervising PhD students in accounting and finance research area. He is associate editor in accounting research journals. His research interests include financial reporting, earning management, cost behavior, and big data. Also, Dr. Ibrahim worked in Egyptian bank for 8 years before switching to academic, and has been an investor in the stock market for 10 years. Thank you, Dr. Abel, for accepting my invitation. Before you start, this webinar is recorded in YouTube. Dr. Awad have 45 to 1 hour for his presentation. After his presentation, you can ask Dr. Awad any of your question. You have 2 types to ask Dr. Awad. The first one, you can type your question in the Q&A below the screen, or you can raise your hand and we can go one by one to ask Dr. Awad. Please don't type your question in the chat, because the chat is keep rolling and we can't catch your question. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much again, Dr. Awad, for accepting my invitation, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for your kind invitation. I am very pleased to be with you today for the first time, and hopefully it wouldn't be the last time. So, and thank you for the audience for their time and attendance. So let me share my screen. So you can see my screen right now, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the topic today is about cost stickiness or cost behavior. Hottest topics in cost management. Actually, cost management and cost accounting. Actually, I have published 4 papers so far in this topic only, cost stickiness or cost behavior. So our topic today is a joint work with other 2 colleagues, with Hisham and with Hiba Nagin. Okay, and it is a systematic literature review. So, you know, most of the research could be empirical research. You have to collect some data, some financial information, or some financial figures and start to analyze them statistically. But this paper, I didn't use any statistics at all. Okay, so it is a systematic literature review about what? About cost stickiness. So let's start about the concept itself. What is the meaning of cost stickiness? You know, if you teach or have studied before the cost behavior or cost accounting, you know that the cost behavior is assumed to be linear all the time. When the activity changes by 1%, the cost responds by an equivalent change. Okay, why? Because the slope of the model is fixed. So this is the traditional cost model or the traditional assumption, which is the cost behavior should be linear all the time. It is written in all the accounting textbook. However, the research found that the cost response to the activity, equivalent activity, is different, is asymmetric, which means what? Which means that the cost behavior is non-linear. Okay, so here we have a problem. The accounting textbooks assume that the cost behavior is linear. However, the research found evidence that the cost behavior is not linear. For example, one of the most pioneer and famous papers in this regard is that paper published by Anderson et al. In 2003 in Journal of Accounting Research. They succeeded to develop a model that enables researchers to discover the cost response to activity change. Okay, and they found evidence on the cost stickiness. They found that when the activity increases by 1%, the cost increases by 0.55. Okay, but when the activity decreases by 1% also, the cost here, the cost response here is different. The cost decreases by only 0.35. Okay, so here, this is the problem. The activity change is the same, 1% increase, 1% decrease, but the cost response is different. The cost increased by 0.55, but decreased by 0.35. And this is the meaning of cost behavior. The cost behavior here is, sorry, this is the meaning of cost stickiness, where the cost behavior responds in a different way. This is example number one. Example number two is when the cost decrease is higher than the cost increase. And this is, we refer to this as anti-sticky cost. So in this diagram, I can explain more this concept or this phenomena. Actually, it is called phenomena in the related research. Here in this diagram, we can see the straight line. This is straight line, which refers to the cost function. As we can see, it is straight line. This means what? The slope is fixed, and the cost behavior is linear. And this is the assumption in all the accounting textbook. But the bold line refers to sticky cost behavior, where the slope of the cost function is flatter. Okay, so we can see here the cost increase is different from the cost decrease. The cost increase is higher than the cost decrease, and this is sticky. And also we can see the dotted line where the cost increase is lower than the cost decrease. Okay, but if you look at the linear line, we can assume, we can conclude that the cost response is the same. Okay, so if the cost increased by 5%, it will decrease by 5% as well. So this is the phenomenon of cost stickiness. And as you can see, there are several papers who provided empirical evidence, strong empirical evidence using different models on the cost stickiness. One of the most papers is published by Anderson in 2003 and by Anderson in 2014. And also I have, this is one of my papers published in Egypt in 2018. Where I found that the cost of goods sold increased by 1.05, but decreased by 0.85. So here, for 1% activity change. So for the same activity change, we see different cost response. And this contradicts the traditional cost model. Okay, so we have sufficient evidence on this phenomenon. So the question now, what are the objectives of this paper, of this research paper? Why? What are the motivation? Why we have decided to start this research? Okay. The first objective is to present the first systematic literature review about the cost stickiness. Okay, we have reviewed all the cost stickiness literature and didn't find any systematic literature review at all. So we want to contribute by providing the first literature review, systematic literature review. The second objective is to explore the different aspects of cost stickiness research to date. What are the main themes? For example, determinants or consequences, implications, what exactly? Also, one of the motivations is to determine the cost stickiness research gaps. And here we wanted to help future researchers. So, for example, I will later at the end of this presentation, you will see 2 slides with up to 10 research gaps. This can help you to start your research, whether you are a master's student or PhD student or even postgraduate. You can select any of these research gaps to start a new research idea. And also to present detailed future research agenda. These are the questions that we work to find the answer for. So before we start our systematic review, we set these questions and we work to find the answer for this. For example, what are the top examined and least examined or non-examined determinants of cost stickiness? What are the top examined or non-examined economic consequences of cost stickiness? Okay, how has the research on cost stickiness developed over time? What are the top theories employed to explain the cost stickiness? What are the significant gaps? All these are the questions that we put before we start our research. By the way, okay, here I have received one question. What is the general consensus about the cost stickiness? Is generally perceived as good or bad? Yeah, this is very good question. You know, it is like what? It is like earning management. Some authors believe that earning management is something bad and we should, you know, fight and so we should prevent, while others see that the different techniques of earning management are used to, you know, allowable, and it is okay to manage your earning. It is okay to improve your earnings. Okay, so the two. Here, the same for the cost stickiness. I can't say whether it is a good or bad, but from my point of view, my internal point of view, I can say that cost stickiness have negative implications when you apply the CVB, for example, or the EPC activity-based costing or cost estimation. The existence of cost stickiness will affect the accuracy of these models, and I will explain this later. To start any systematic literature review, you have to protocol. It's called review protocol. Okay, it is very important. This protocol is like a plan to help you ensure the quality of this research. So this is our protocol that consists of 6 steps. The first one is to construct a search keywords list. So what are the keywords that we should use in Google or Google Scholar or in a database to find the cost stickiness articles, research articles? Secondly, identify the target search engines and database. Should we search in Google Scholar only, or Emerald, for example, or Springer? What are the databases that we should use? And also after that, the third step was to select, to set some selection criteria. Because by the way, if you search about any topic in Google, you will find thousands of articles, but you have to set your criteria, okay, to ensure the quality of your review. And I will explain this in details later. The fourth step was to start comprehensive research and download the full text of these papers. And after that, we apply the selection criteria, and at the end, we start to write our review. These 2 papers are the papers that we conduct our systematic literature review. According to the 2 papers, any systematic literature review should consist of 3 stages. The first one is to plan the review. The second is to conduct the review, and the third to start writing. Okay, and we have applied this approach. So the first step of our review protocol is to identify the keywords. And as you can see, we use these keywords. The cost behavior. So when we start searching in Google or in a database, we search for in articles, including the keywords cost behavior or cost stickiness or cost asymmetry. So cost stickiness is the same meaning of cost asymmetry, the same meaning. And these are the databases and websites that we used. We used Request and Emerald Science Direct, all these to find the articles. And by the way, for example, for a paper like that of, we reviewed the reference list of Anderson papers to find any related research articles. Okay, these are the selection criteria. So assume that you found 1,000 papers. Of course, you wouldn't be able to review the 1,000. So you have to set some criteria to increase the standards of this review to ensure the quality. The first criterion here is that cost stickiness should be sorry. Cost stickiness should be a central research question, should be the main objective of any selected paper. Secondly, the article should be published in English and online or in any online academic or peer-reviewed journals. Working papers and ECCs and articles published on SSRN were not selected. Why? To ensure the quality, because all this work, it lacks the peer review, okay? And we just need to focus on any online published work. And also this selected article should be published in a top-ranked journal between 2 and 4 stars, according to ABC. So here we excluded any article talking about cost thickness, but published in 1-star journal. So after we applied our protocol, what are the outcomes? As you can see here, I will start by some statistics about the number of articles. Actually, we found 80 articles that are criteria, okay? And these articles have been published between 1994 and December 2020. It is a time period of 27 years. And these papers have been published in 36 journals. If we classify them according to the industry, we found that 78 articles or 89% of the sample, okay, examined cost stickiness in non-financial firms. And only 2% examined cost stickiness in financial firms, including the banks, and only 7 articles used the mixed samples, okay, in both financial and non-financial. Okay, so this can give you an indication that just only 2 papers examine the cost stickiness in financial firms, so it is a big literature gap. About the themes that these 80 articles reviewed, actually we are able to classify our articles according to 3 themes. The first one, empirical evidence on existence. So we found that 24% of our review articles aim to provide evidence on cost stickiness. This is the main objective for 19 studies. And we found the majority, which is 50 studies or 62% of the review articles, aim to examine the determinants of cost stickiness. What are the reasons of cost stickiness? What are the determinants of cost stickiness? While only 11 studies examine the consequences of cost stickiness. Okay. About the historical development of cost stickiness research, we found that 85% of the review articles are published during the last 7 years. Okay, only starting from 2014 to December 2020. Okay, 85% of all these articles. So this means that the attention of researchers started to increase since 2014. The most active year in terms of research was 2019 with 21 studies. So 21 studies in 1 year, which is 2019. Okay, this is the first year with to research on cost stickiness. However, there are some years without any research at all on cost stickiness, such as 1995, 1996, 2001, 2011. Okay, I didn't find any research in these years. About the theory, the frequency distribution of theories applied in this research. Actually, we will be able to classify up to 27 theories. These theories examined in 44 studies. And there are 36 studies don't refer to any theory at all. Okay. What are the top theories? As you can see, the theory of cost asymmetry. It means the theory of cost stickiness. It is the same meaning. Also, agent theory by 13 studies, and the cost of cost asymmetry. The theory of cost asymmetry was used in 22 articles, followed by economic theory and the resources adjustment cost theory. Okay, and we can see here some theories that just examined once. Okay, such as the rollover risk theory, for example, or public choice theory. These are theories that were rarely examined in the context of cost stickiness. About the research quality, it is important when you collect your review articles to test or evaluate their quality. So how? How to evaluate the research quality? Actually, we have applied two approaches. The first one is dependent on the APC. You know, here in the UK, we have a journal ranking guide. Okay. So this journal is 1 star, this journal is 2, this journal is 3, and or this journal is 4. 4 is the best, and 1 is the lowest. Okay, so actually we applied this approach, and the second one is through the number of citations. You know, when the number of citations increases, this is an indication of the quality of this research article. However, you should consider the time effect, and I will explain this in more details. So here, okay. This is the outcome based on the first approach. Okay, I found 20 articles are published in 4-star journals. One quarter of our sample have been published in 4-star, and 24 published in 3-star, which means that almost 50%, half of our review articles have been published in 3 and 4-star, and the remaining 51 published in 2-star. This means what? This means that, you know, the 50% of research on cost stickiness has been published in 3 and 4-star, which is a very good indication of the quality of this research. Okay. One of the most common and strong articles, for example, this one that was published by Banker and Shin in 2006. Okay. And Banker, by the way, the Professor Banker is working in America and is one of the main authors of cost stickiness. He published up to 30 or more research papers on cost stickiness. Also, this paper was 2010. It examined or developed a new model that is different from that of Anderson on how to discover the cost stickiness. Okay. One more dimension here, which is the citation. Okay. If I ask you if you have two papers, paper 1 and paper 2, paper 1 has 1,000 citations, but this paper was published in 2010, and paper 2 has 500 citations, but it was published recently in 2017. Which one is better than the other? Of course, we can't say that paper 1 is better than paper 2 according to the number of citations. Why? Because here the publication date is different. Sorry. Here 2017, here 2010. So when you consider the number of citations when evaluating the quality of research, you have to consider the time as well. Okay. So to consider the time, there is a very famous formula that was used by Demey et al. In 2016 to consider the time effect, where we divided the number of citations by 2021 minus publication year. This will consider the time effect. So this is the result. Okay, this table 2. So the most cited paper is that was published by Anderson et al. In 2003. The number of citations was 1,289. Okay, and the citation years 18 from 2021 to 2003, and the CPY, which is the indication of the formula, is 72. Okay, so this is the highest. We can say the paper with the highest citations. So this is another dimension to consider the quality of your research. Another dimension here is about the cost stickiness research by country, developing or developed countries. We found that 28 articles have been published in developing countries, while 38 with about 3/4 of the research published in developed countries. Okay, and this is also another gap. We have to develop more research on cost stickiness in developing countries. 1/4 in developing and 3/4 in developed. Regarding the country, this comes first. Okay, with 57 papers on cost stickiness. have been published in US, followed by Germany. Only 9 papers have been published in Germany, and 8 for each of UK, Belgium, Italy, and Australia. Okay, and Finland as well. As you can see here, the first 6 people, the first 6 countries, the first 6 countries from USA to Australia dominate 30% of research in cost stickiness. 30% of research on cost stickiness is focused in these 6 countries. Okay. About the developing countries, China comes first with its research articles in China, followed by India, Indonesia, and Malaysia, as you can see. Okay. What about the Arab countries or Arab nations? We found only 5 studies examine cost stickiness in 3 Arab countries: Egypt, United Arab Emirates, and Jordan. Only 3 countries and only 5 papers. Okay. Cost stickiness research by cost category. You know, we have different types of costs. We collected, you know, according to the table, 18 different costs. The researchers examined their behavior, starting by selling the general administrative, operating costs, and also the audit fees. Here we have 1 paper that examined the stickiness of the audit fees. Okay, so but the top 5 expenses, as you can see, are selling general administrative, operating costs, cost of goods sold, total cost, and the labor cost. Okay. These five costs were examined in 85% of the studies. So 85% of the studies examined these costs, while both selling, general administrative, and operating, the first 2 only, you know, were examined in 61% of research. So the top, we can say the top costs examined: selling, general administrative, operating costs, and cost of goods sold, total cost, and the labor cost. Finally, okay, how can we benefit? How can you benefit from our research? Actually, our research will provide 10 different, sorry, not 10, 12 teacher gaps. And each of these ideas could be one separate research. Okay, the consequences. We have seen that only 11 studies have examined the economic consequences of cost stickiness. Just only 11 studies. Okay, so this is, of course, a very good motivation to know what are the economic consequences, what are the implications of cost stickiness. Okay, the second idea here, we didn't find any empirical evidence on how cost stickiness, if we look at the cost stickiness as a problem, so what about its negative effects? How cost stickiness could distort the estimations of accounting techniques such as CVP, pricing, cost estimation, EBC, for example. Okay, so what are the effects? We didn't find any study that provide evidence on how cost stickiness could affect the EBC, how cost stickiness could affect the cost estimation, how EBC could affect the pricing. Okay, so this is another research idea. The third one is about uncertainty. Uncertainty about the future demand. Okay, when managers are in doubt about the future demand, they could make some decisions, okay, that could affect the cost behavior and create the cost stickiness. But you know, only maybe 3 studies only examined the uncertainty as a determinant or reason of cost stickiness. So still more research, more empirical evidence could be added. The existence of key employees and intellectual capital, very important. You know why? Because one of the main reasons of cost stickiness is the managerial decisions. The cost stickiness is a result of managerial decisions. So the nature of employees or managers, whether they are key employees or, if you are talking about the intellectual capital, this could some way, okay, affect their decisions. And when their decisions are different, the cost behavior will be different. But only one paper was found to examine, sorry, let me, only one paper found to examine the effect of key employees and intellectual capital. Also, about the ownership structure. Okay, about the ownership structure, we found a few papers, only 3 papers about the cost ownership structure. Okay, so you can also add more by particularly, we didn't find any study that examines the effect of the governmental ownership on cost stickiness or the institutional. For the institutional ownership, there is only one paper which is published by Schmidt et al. In 2012. It examines the institutional ownership, but as a control variable, not as a main variable. So, but for governmental ownership, we didn't find any study about this. So you can examine the effect of ownership structure alongside the other corporate governance characteristics. Also about, the financial and the non-financial firms. Only 2 studies were found to examine financial firms, and this is a motivation for you to examine the cost behavior in banks and financial firms. Another research item. Also, when we examine the banks, okay, and classify them as traditional or Islamic, we also didn't find any study that consider the effect of the Islamic law or the Sharia on the cost behavior. Never. Okay, we haven't found any of the articles that examine the effect of the Islamic law. So also, because we have the Islamic banks with different regulations, different rules. So this could affect. You can make a comparative study, by the way, between the cost behavior in both traditional banks and Islamic banks. Another research idea. Okay. One more idea is about the empire building hypothesis. What is the empire building hypothesis? This assumes that managers are likely to retain unused resources when activity declines to keep their firms large. Some managers, not all of them, get happy when they dominate or manage large firms, okay, than smaller firms. So they make some deliberate decisions to enlarge their firms, and this would create cost stickiness. Okay, so here you can start a new research paper about the cost stickiness and use the empire building hypothesis as your main hypothesis. And you have to find how the empire building motivations and the incentives could affect the cost behavior. Also about the quantitative and the qualitative approach. Most of the articles, okay, are following the quantitative approach. They collected data and analyzed this data statistically. We didn't find any paper that applied the qualitative. We didn't find any paper that conducted interviews or sent questionnaires to managers to understand their perceptions, whether they are aware of this problem or not. Okay, so and this is very interesting research idea, because all the research on cost stickiness is academic research. We just collect the data and apply the model and get the results. That's it. But what about the perceptions of the market? What about the perception in the industry? Whether the financial analysts who use the published data to make investment decisions and recommendations for investors, whether they consider the existence of cost stickiness or not. Okay. So if you want to search more, you can conduct interviews or even send questionnaires with financial analysts, with managers to get more insights about their perception of cost stickiness. Also, we found 74% of research examined cost stickiness in developing countries and only 77% in the developed. And this is an invitation to search more in developing countries, especially the Arab countries. Okay, Egypt and as I told you, Egypt, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates are the only 3 countries with research in cost stickiness. You can examine the same problem in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a slightly different business environment or the GCC, any other countries. One more idea, it is number 11, which is the role of an external auditor. External auditor plays a vital role and influence many managerial decisions. As I told you, the cost stickiness is a result of managerial decision. Okay, so here I did find in a study that make a link between the role of the external auditor and the existence of cost stickiness. No, we didn't find it. The last research idea is about the effect of CEO characteristics and attributes of cost behavior. We have culture, religion, education, experience, and gender diversity. And I know Dr. Ahmed has his PhD on gender diversity. So if you are looking for new research idea, you can examine how the attributes, personal attributes and other attributes of CEO could affect the cost behavior, or whether they can create or help in the existence of cost stickiness. Okay, so I think this is the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for your time, for listening. I'm happy to hear your questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Awad, for your brilliant and excellent presentation. So useful. If you have any question, please raise your hand. For who is asking about the record, I put in the chat so anyone can get back to it. And also tomorrow, inshallah, you will receive an email for the record, so you can always get back to it and watch it again. For who's want to check also this webinar on the channel and the YouTube, so I put that in the chat as well, so you can get back to it. Dr. Awad will start the question. We have a question from Dr. Mohammed Abdul Ghani.
Okay, Mohammed. Alaikum salam.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
My question is about measuring issue. Excuse me, I'm logging late. I was trying to find the link, but I signed in late, so maybe I missed that part if it is already have been discussed. My question is about how to measure cost thickness when it's treated as an independent variable. Dr. Ibrahim, with me?
Yes. Okay.
I am preparing my PhD right now about cost thickness and how it affects error forecast, one of research streams. I read about WES model, which measure the cost thickness as an independent variable. However, I have a lot of missing observation because the restriction it brought to measure cost thickness as independent variable.
Okay.
This is one of my first questions. My second question is how to study the effect of when I wanted to study the effect of, for example, industry on the cost thickness, nature, and degree. Do I should prepare separate regression according to ABG model for each industry, or can I take industry as a dummy variable? Which is better, and how can I interpret both approaches to dealing with industry as a dummy variable, for example?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And very good luck in your PhD. So regarding the first question, how to discover the cost thickness using the model. Actually, the most common model that I have used and many authors use is that presented by Anderson et al. In 2003. Okay, where there are three main variables. The Y, or the dependent, is the cost change. Okay, this is Y. And on the right-hand side, it is the sales change. Because at the end, the cost stickiness is a relation between the activity change, which is represented by the sales change, and the cost change, which is presented by the change in the cost. Okay, so the Anderson model is very simple, just includes three variables: y, x1, and the x2. X1 and the x2 refers to the change in the activity, but y refers to the change in cost. Okay, and if you review the paper of Anderson, you will find that he puts the authors put one rule. So if these conditions are satisfied, so we can say that here there is cost stickiness. If these rules are not satisfied, so no cost stickiness, or it could be cost anti-stickiness. Okay, so I remember one of the rules is about what? About the coefficient. The coefficient which is P1 of x1 and the coefficient P2 of x2. Okay, you have to look at these coefficients and compare them with the change in cost. Okay, based on this comparison, you can see whether it is cost stickiness or anti-stickiness, and it is clearly mentioned in the paper of Anderson. And by the way, there is another model which was published by Weiss et al. In 2010. I think it was about earning forecast, because you say that you are working in forecasting, but it is a different model, but I am not familiar with. About your second question regarding the industry, okay, like any other regression model, but by the way, the model of Anderson or the models of cost stickiness are the models that use in terms, interaction terms. You multiply different variables by each other, okay? So it is not the normal one. But you can still add any variable you want. You can add corporate governance variables by multiplying them. And I explained this in my paper published in 2018 in details, because I was examining the effect of financial structure in this paper. So I put the variables and multiply them to get the result. So you can add the industry as normal, as we know, or for example, if you have 9 industries, you can make dummy variables from 1 to 9. This is one option. The second option, you can make only 3 variables. So for example, if your study period is during or before and after the financial crisis, you can make the first variable before the financial crisis, the second during the financial crisis, and the third after. So you will have 3 only. Okay, but I remember a paper that was published in 2014. When they start to examine the effect of industry, they classified the companies into 4 sectors. I think three sectors. The service companies, the merchandising companies, and the commercial companies. And they examined each of the costs. They applied the model separately in each of the 3 industries. And also, I think if you have 7 or 8 different sectors, could give you accurate results if you apply the Anderson model in each of these sectors independently.
Much, doctor, and thank you for your help.
You are welcome. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed.
I can see here some questions. Let me answer. Dr. Ahmed, can I answer that?
We'll get back to Q&A later on, Doctor.
Okay.
So we have a question from Bilal Ghalib.
Yes, please. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu wa rahmatullah.
Thank you, Doctor, for these informative lectures. It's really helpful for me. But still, the question about the measurement. Do we consider that cost stickiness as a behavior that managers involved to get some result? Because, if we compare with earning management, there is some intention from the managers to affect the outcomes of the activities. But in cost stickiness, it's really not more clear. Can you highlight this one question?
Okay, this is very good question, by the way. Thank you for the question. Yes, for earning management, there are motivations and incentives, managerial incentives for managers to gain more profits or to increase the share price. But the case is different with when you come to the cost stickiness. It is not clear like earning management, but there are some incentives and there are some benefits, but managers are not aware of the effect of these decisions on cost behavior. Usually, they don't know that this decision will make the costs to behave as sticky or unsticky. Like what? Like the empire building. Okay. For example, when the demand declines, when there is economic recession, what is the normal decision? The normal decision is to retire the unrequired employees. Stop stop trading with suppliers and start to sell any unused resources. However, the managers with incentives of empire building keep and maintain these resources. Okay, although they are not required at all, but they keep these resources to keep the size of the corporation as large as possible. So this is the incentive and this is a benefit for them. But what about the consequence? The consequence is that the cost behavior starts to behave as sticky or unsticky. Okay?
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you. Second question, please, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yes, because I refer your page on Scholar, I saw that you already study about real earning management. Based on your experience in these two topics, can you please explain how to link cost stickiness with the real earning management? As you know, one of the measurement to use production costs, how to link these two topics together. Thank you so much.
Another good question, and I have read something about this in one of the research papers, but I don't remember it. Yes, of course, there is a direct link between real earning management and cost stickiness, and hopefully that you can research this more. What is the link? For real earning management, it is dependent on the decisions of managers. So, for example, the overproduction. Managers overproduce to reduce the cost of goods sold. Managers started to sell assets. Okay, another decision. Managers start to reduce the expenditure, which is called expenditure reduction. Okay, so these are decisions. And by the way, some of these decisions, yes, they are real earning management and they have impact and they have financial incentives. But if you look at their consequences, you can find that the cost behavior changes because of these decisions. So the main motivation is not to make the cost behave as sticky. No, the main objective is to reduce the expenditure or overproduce to reduce the cost of goods sold. These are the main motivations. Okay, but usually managers are not aware of the impact of these decisions on the cost behavior. Okay. So I found, to the best of my knowledge, just one paper that referred to the link between two, but of course, you know why? Because the cost stickiness is a result of the manager's decisions. Okay, and also I recommend any future researcher to conduct questionnaire or interviews with managers to provide evidence whether managers are aware of the implications of cost stickiness or not. That's it.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Bilal. We have another question from Saad Faisal. If you don't mind, unmute your mic so we can hear you, Saad. Please a reminder, anyone can ask Dr. Awad in Arabic or in English, that's fine. Saad, if you unmute your mic so we can hear you, please. Yes, go ahead now.
Assalamu alaikum.
عليكم السلام.
دكتور عندي
عليكم السلام.
بالنسبه السؤال الاول، هل يمكن استخدام التكلفه اللصقه في بيانات من نوع البانل ام يجب ان تكون بولد مثلا؟ يعني البانل باعتبار انه شركات مثلا عندنا اكثر من شركه اكثر من سنه، يمكن استخدام التكلفه اللصقه يعني الموديل النموذج يعني متعارف عليه، يعني الطريقه العاديه البولد، يعني بيانات اللي ممكن استخدامها في التحليل. هذا السؤال الاول. عند السؤال الثاني، كيف يمكن تحديد التكلفه اللصقه في الشركات من خلال النموذج بعد استخدام الريجريشن الاحصائي له؟ كيف يمكن تحديد انه هذه الشركه حدثت فيها تكلفه لصقه ام لم تحدث؟ حتى يمكن بعد تحديثها مثلا انا احاول انه اجد علاقه ما بين التكلفه اللصقه مثلا وبعض المتغيرات، على سبيل المثال لها علاقه بحكم الشركات، اللي لها علاقه مثل ايرنينج مانجمنت الى اخره. يعني كيف يمكن تحديد ان هذه الشركه وقعت بها التكلفه اللصقه ام لم تقع عن طريق النموذج المعتمد اللي هو يمكن IGB. شكرا جزيلا.
الله يخليك، شكرا. هو لو انت بس فتحت البيبر بتاعت اندرسون 2003 هتلاقيه كاتب قبل الموديل ازاي نعتبر الكوست دي، الكوست بيبر ستيكي ولا مش ستيكي. تمام. هي انت بتطلع النتائج فبتبص على البي 1 اللي هي الكوفيشنت بتاع اكس 1 وبي 2 وبتقارنهم ببعض. تمام. لو انا تذكرتها حاليا، لو المجموع بي 1 بلس بي 2 اكبر من بي 1 فدي تبقى كوست ستيكنس. لو B1 بلس B2 مجموعهم اقل من B1 تبقى دي كوست انت ستيكنس. تمام. ودي مذكوره.
نقطه ممكن ملاحظه دكتور. هذا انا اعرف هذه القاعده الرئيسيه بالنسبه للتكلفه. انا اقصد بعد ان القاعده هذه الموجوده، كيف يمكن انه اعرف انه هذه الشركه حدث بها تكلفه والشركه صار لها تعطي تحليل للشركات في الداتا، بس انا ادي اعرف هذه الشركه تكلفه لصقه واحد غير التكلفه اللصقه بالنسبه للشركه صفر، حتى بالنتيجه اطلع متغير دائمي. يعني هذا اللي اريد انا.
انت عايز تعملها شركه بشركه، يعني انت عايز تعملها شركه شركه بشركه ولا مجموعه شركات مع بعض؟
يعني اذا عندي 100 شركه اقدر استخدم التكلفه اللصقه بالنموذج العادي واسوي تحليل احصائي.
ايوه،
لو ما يصير بس شركه واحده.
هو الموديل ده مجريشن طبيعي عادي.
اي صحيح.
هو ريجريشن عادي، انت بتجمع الداتا وتعمل ريجريشن وبتشوف النتائج. هل سؤالك بقى انت عايزها شركه واحده بس؟
لا، اكثر من شركه، 100 شركه.
هي ايوه، لا 100 زي
ب5 سنوات.
لا 100 كويس، يعني
100 ب5 سنوات.
ماشي كويس. 100
شركه 5.
105 ب 500 مثلا، يعني 500 اوبزرفيشن.
بوليود اشتغل بوليود هنا لو اشتغل بانل من
هو الموديل اللي هو انت عارف اللي هو اللي هي عدد من السنوات وعدد من الشركات، اسمها البانل داتا. اوكي. اي انواع اخرى من الريجريشن بقى انت حاول تاخد الموديل وتعمل له ادجست، بس هو المين موديل بانل داتا اللي هو عدد من الشركات زي ما انت قلت 100 شركه في عدد من السنوات اللي هم 5 سنين.
طيب بعد ان كملت الشركات والبيانات، هل شلون اقدر كيف اعرف انه هذه الشركه حدث فيها تكلفه لصقه ام لم تحدث؟ هذا قصدي، حتى اعطي متغير دامي، حتى اختبر هذه البيانات مع مثلا متغيرات اخرى.
الشركه تحديدا، يعني انت عايز
الشركات مثلا تاثير زياده مجلس الاداره على.
انت بتتكلم على شركه بشركه. هو لو سؤالك
يعني شركه بشركه دكتور، يعني اجيب المعادله نفسها اللي الكونفيشن مع المعادله وبعدين اختبر واطلع نتيجه حتى اعرف لو عن طريق مثلا مقدار الخطا، يعني عن طريق كيف يمكن تحديد. هذا قصدي. يعني
لو عايز شركه بس تحديدا فهيضطر تعمل اوبزرفيشنز كتيره، هتبقى مثلا محتاج 100 اوبزرفيشن او حاجه. تمام. لو هي شركه واحده بس،
لا لا
ففي الحالة دي هتبقى محتاج مثلا 100 اوبزرفيشن وكده عن اللي هي اللي تشينج في الكوست واللي تشينج في السيلز او اللي تشينج في الاكتيفيتي يعني. تمام. فهتبقى لو ماشي ممكن تركب
نعم.
عشان بس هتبقى محتاج اوبزرفيشنز كتيره فيها، وبرضه تقارن بي 1 بلس بي 2 بي 1.
يعني كل شركه لازم اخلي نموذج لها واشتغل عليه احصائيا كل شركه وحتى
بالظبط
اعرف
كده.
التكلفه.
انا الصراحه مش قوي،
دكتور
ممكن همشي بطريقه احصائيه ثانيه ممكن فيها ولا لا، بس
دكتور،
هم
احصائيا من الصعب انه احدد مثلا يحتاج لي اكثر من على الاقل اكثر من 30 داتا يعني متغير يعني
تعملها
كل
اندستري
شركه.
يعني يعملها اندستري يعني خد مثلا البانكس لوحدهم، او خد مثلا اللي هي البتروكيميكالز، يعني ركز في اندستري، ده هيعطيك اصلا يعني more informative results يعني.
شكرا سعد. ناخذ سؤال ثاني. دكتور، في عندنا سؤال من باليوتيوب. دكتور فاطمة ask why have you choose 27 years?
Okay, good question. Okay, when I and Hisham and Hiba reviewed all the articles on cost stickiness and the get back, okay, so we and apply our criteria. So we found as the first year to start, or the first paper was published in 1994. 1994. From 1994 to December 2020, it is 27 years. Okay. By the way, from our research also we found a paper published in Germany and in German language, but it was published in 1927. Okay, and it is in German. So we, of course, because our criterion is to only select the articles published in English. So we started from 1994 to December 2020.
All right. Abdul Khizr, thank you, Dr. Abdul Khizr, please unmute your mic so we can hear you. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Awad. That's a very interesting presentation. Thank you very much for taking our time. I have a couple of questions. One is, in your classification of sticky costs, you mentioned audit fee as one of the sticky costs. And I'm a little unsure about how audit fee is sticky in nature, because stickiness, as I understand, and even based on your second slide, is it goes up to by, let's say, X% when sales go up, but it goes down by something less than X% when sales go down, right? So how's the asymmetric nature of audit fee really justified?
Okay. Okay. You know, the audit fees has been examined like any other fees, okay, or any other expenses. So the researchers found, it was only one paper, found evidence that, you know, because at the end it is a relation between the activity and these fees. For example, when the activity level increases, what happened to the audit fees? The audit fees here is examined as a cost, okay? So statistically, they found evidence that audit fees, you know, when the activity increases, you know what? When the size of the company increases, what happened to the activities? The number of activities increases. What happened to the audit cost or audit fees increases as well. Okay, when the auditors examine a small company, the cost is small. When the auditors examine a large company, so of course the cost will be higher. Okay, so here audit fees are different, they change all the time, and the audit fees are dependent on the activity and are dependent on the size of the company. Okay, so it is the same relationship of the cost thickness. What happens to the cost when the activity change? So when the number of activities increases, of course, the audit fees will increase. When the number of activities decrease, the audit fees will decrease. Okay, so there is a direct relationship between both of them.
Okay, thank you very much. And just a follow-up question. I have read the Banker et al. Review paper on cost stickiness, and then there's a 2018 review paper on cost stickiness as well. So what above and beyond these two papers will I, or should I be expecting from your paper, so that, how would it help us above and beyond what is already out there?
Okay, regarding the papers you mentioned, they are very critical papers, and our approach that we follow is completely different from the approach in these papers. They are talking only about the models, about the, the concept itself generally, but they didn't review, they didn't, for example, classify the articles, they didn't evaluate the quality of the research and cost stickiness. Okay, so our papers, when it get published, of course, it will, it is a review from different perspectives. So
Okay.
that's why we didn't consider the two papers as review papers.
Okay, that makes sense. And Ahmed and Awad, is there a way I can access your review paper? Is it already out there, or how do I get my hands on your?
Okay, yeah, actually, it will be published soon. So, okay, so just when we get published, we can send you its link.
Sure, probably Ahmed can post it on his ITAR group or something, so that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Ahmed can publish on Facebook on the group link.
That is good. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and thank you, Ahmed, for arranging this. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much for joining. We have another question from Mohammed Ahmed.
Okay. Mohammed, you can ask you.
Thank you, Dr. Awad. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for arranging this seminar. I just got one question. From the gaps you identify in the research, you didn't mention about like the effect between cost stickiness and risk reporting and corporate social responsibility. Did you find like any papers discuss this issue, and is there any meta-analysis or statistical analysis for this paper? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. By the way, there is no meta-analysis for the cost stickiness. So if you want to further research this topic, you can conduct meta-analysis. We didn't find any meta-analysis paper. Regarding the other question about the relationship between cost stickiness and CSR, okay. I remember that I think there is one paper that examines this issue. Do you know why? Because there are some activities, social activities and social decisions that are taken by the managers, and this could affect the cost behavior as well. But the nature of these decisions, because they are not business, they are social, so it could affect the cost behavior in a different way. But yes, I remember that one of the 80 papers that we reviewed has examined the effect of social responsibility, CSR.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Thank you, Mohammed. Doctor, in the Q&A, we have also a couple of questions. There is a question from Nisreen Al-Malih. السلام عليكم، من وجه نظر حضرتك ما هي أفضل ترجمة عربية لمصطلح sticky costs؟
والله هو أفضل ترجمة عربية أنه لا يتم ترجمتها أصلا. هي you can take it as it is. تمام. طبعا أنا سمعت ترجمات كثيرة قوي ليها اللي هي التكاليف اللصقة والملتصقة واللزجة ويعني كتير، فأنا يعني عشان نحافظ على معناها هي sticky، يعني sticky behavior وأنت sticky behavior. يعني نقولها كده sticky cost بس وخلاص، او التكاليف الستيكي يعني. لكن انا ما اقدرش اقول ترجمه عربيه طبعا ليها، وما لا افضل اللي هي حتى لو انت حضرتك بتعملي ريسيرش ممكن تكتبيها دايما ستيكي يعني. وفي انا اعتقد في حتى يعني مصطلحات كتيره باللغه الانجليزيه لم يتم ترجمتها، يعني تستخدم في الريسيرش بتاعنا زي ما هي يعني.
ايضا في عندنا سؤال من دكتوره آسيا. Can you give us a brief definition of documentary research?
لا, يعني to the best of my knowledge, I haven't studied this type of research before. My main concern is only the systematic literature review and the empirical paper. But for documentary, sorry, I haven't come across this before.
Okay, is there another question from the same Dr. Asia? The point is there is a difference between the literature gaps and future research, or are they similar?
Okay, if you select one research gap, okay, and decided to examine it further, so in this case, the teacher gap will become future research. But if you just only read and become aware of the teacher gap and know that yes, there is a teacher gap, at this point it is still a teacher gap. It is not a future research. So it depends on your decision. If you read it and recognize that there is a teacher gap and decided to further research this gap, so in this case it becomes future research. Okay.
Maybe she meant, Doctor, what if she meant in the research itself? So, you know, some of papers they wrote, for example, in systematic or other, they wrote, for example, there is a gap or the gaps of this research 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And of course, because you are the author of this paper, you fill these gaps, okay? Of course, not all the gaps, but you fill some of those gaps. At the end of this paper, and maybe the end of this paper, you will
In the summary and the conclusion.
yes.
And the conclusion, yes, you can write that you have succeeded to fill some or all the teacher gaps that you found, but still some gaps that you will not able to cover, and you suggest them for future research.
Thank you, Dr. Asia. داليا ask لو حصل نقص في المبيعات وما حصلتش نقص في التكاليف لمدة عدة سنين لنفس الشركة، ده يبقى cost stickiness؟
لو حصل يعني decrease في السيلز.
داليا, can you raise your hand please if you don't mind, so you can ask Dr. Awad better, so he can get your point. Dalia.
تمام يعني she may not be available but I can answer its question. I got it the point. يعني هجاوب بالعربي على اساس هو السؤال مكتوب بالعربي. ما هي دي الستيكي. ما هو لو حصل نقص في المبيعات دي هنا اللي هي الاكتيفيتي اللي هو النشاط، يعني لو النشاط قل ايه هي النتيجه المتوقعه؟ ايه اللي المفروض التكاليف تقل، بس اللي بيحصل هنا ما بتقلش، هتفضل زي ما هي قبل كده، تمام، في الغالب يعني. فلو كده لعده سنوات طبعا دي هي الستيكي، دي اللي هي ستيكي بيهيفير، يعني اللي هو لما انت قللت النشاط المتوقع كان المفروض التكاليف تقل بس هي ما قلتش. لو قلت يبقى خلاص كده هيبقى لينير كوست بيهيفير، لكن لو التكاليف قلت ولو المبيعات قلت والتكاليف زي ما هي، لا يبقى هنا الريليشن ماهيش لينير، تبقى دي ستيكي على طول، ستيكي كوست.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Also, we have a question from Abdul Khazar. I don't know if he asked this question already or not. The first question: what is the general consequences about cost stickiness? Is it general?
Yeah, I answered this question by the way, Ahmed. Yeah, I answered it.
Both of them?
The first one.
The first one. The second one. Why is audit fee classified as a sticky cost?
Yeah, I answered this as well. Because there is someone who asked me this question and I replied to him that audit fees is like other any costs. If it is affected by the audit, the activity, okay, in a certain way, so of course, yes, it is. It can be sticky or anti-sticky.
Thank you, Dr. Awad. Anyone have any question? Please, if you have any question, raise your hand before we end today's webinar. Raja.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
It's a great presenting for your paper. It's very knowledgeable and it's a new thing in our situation in Lebanon. Like we are facing a lot of problems and economical crisis. So stickiness cost, like in Lebanon, unfortunately, most resources are imported from outside of the country. So they are paying it in dollars, and we have 2 or 3 official price for dollars toward the Lebanese pound nowadays. Like we have the one fixed in central bank, 1,500 Lebanese pound per dollar. The other one is 4,000, and in black market per dollars, we are getting 13,000 Lebanese pound. So how we can collaborate, or how we can save our costs that increasing every day. So we facing stickiness cost, because every day we are waking up in different percentage or different exchange in currency inside the country. So based on your experience or background in the field of stickiness cost, do you have any advice if someone have a small market? Let's talk about small business that they are buying their sources from the Lebanese market. Thank you.
Okay, so do you mean the relationship or the effect of the exchange in the currency value?
Yeah, exactly. But every day we have different prices to buy the resources from the market or to sell them. Like we are talking for any shop, like a small restaurant.
Okay, yeah,
So they
yeah.
are buying the cost is different every day, so it's changeable. Even now, if you go to any supermarket, you can't see any prices fixed on the stands. You have to go to the cashier to tell you about how much it costs toward the dollars, because they are selling and buying in black market, but originally in the central bank, it's still same. But salaries here in Lebanon still in Lebanese pound, like $500, 700 Lebanese pound. But before, this is before. Now, $100 it's equal to 1,200,000 Lebanese pound. So here the stickiness, it doesn't work in this country, right? We can take it an example, or we put it in a papers, a study after the whole explosion or the crisis happened. I'm right or no?
Yeah, I think this is very complicated relation, by the way, very complicated, because I haven't come across it, but I have a paper that was published 2015 about the effect of the economic recession or prosperity on the cost behavior. Okay, but I didn't examine the effect of the change in the currency, and I think you have to talk also about the hyperinflation. Okay, when the prices increase sharply. Okay, so the effect of hyperinflation, you know. Because this situation is not common around the world. It could be just in a number of countries. So your country, Lebanon, has a special case. So
we need another theory, like to be 2021 theory.
Yeah.
Because doctor, if
you need to
compare,
yeah. So you can examine the cost behavior and the cost stickiness in the environment of hyperinflation, for example.
Yeah.
Okay. The currency. I didn't find any paper about this, by the way.
Yeah, because if you compare it to Turkey, it happens between 2016, and the currency and the corruption, what happened, they are producing. But here we are importing most of the resources or the main sets for things from outside. So it's in the hard currency. So I think this is an exception if we take it as a case study as a Lebanon.
I think its contribution will be very, very high, by the way. Because
thank you, Doctor.
Yes, you can do it as a special case on, and here you can better justify the question why Lebanon. You can see a lot of question, a lot of justify.
We were related to politics, of course, because here we are separated from the decision coming from the central bank is related to the political decisions, and you know that sectarians in Lebanon is making already manipulating things inside the country itself.
Yeah, you can here refer to the concept of centralization and the decentralization.
Yeah,
how centralization could affect the cost behavior.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. I appreciate your
You're welcome. Good questions.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Raja. And I received your email, by the way. Inshallah, I will get back to you. And
okay, Inshallah. Thank you, Dr. Ahmad. We can talk later. Really, it's a pleasure for me to be everywhere in these sessions. It's beneficial for me as well. Thank you.
Anil, please unmute your mic so we can hear your question.
Good evening, Professor. I wanted to know, you suggested that Arab countries do not have less cost, they have very less cost stickiness. So, and you had something to tell about India. So can you suggest if I want to do some preliminary work on cost stickiness in India. So what would be the research questions or something like that, if you can suggest any?
Okay, by the way, no, I didn't say that cost stickiness is not common in the Arab world. I am talking about the research itself. Only 5 papers are conducted on the Arab countries. But of course, if you search more, you will find cost stickiness. About India, okay, you can repeat the same ideas of cost stickiness, or I mean the research ideas that have been examined in America or in Germany or in the UK. For example, you can examine the empire building hypothesis and its effect on cost stickiness in India. Okay, you can examine, for example, the effect of ownership structure, the governmental ownership on cost behavior. You can examine the institutional ownership effect on the cost stickiness. So you can, if the research in India is very low, you can repeat all the, you can re-examine all the previous ideas, but in a different environment, which is India.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you so much. We have another question from Daria Abdelmunem. What is the relation of idle capacity and access capacity with cost stickiness concept?
Yes, it is very related. You know why? Because the idle capacity could lead to cost stickiness. Why? You have idle capacity, which is unused or unemployed resources. In this case, you have to get rid of. You have to exploit them, but managers don't exploit them. They maintain these unrequired, or we call them slack resources or idle resources. So when they keep them, this would lead to the cost behavior. And the same for excess capacity as well. And I think this concept has been examined on some papers. Yeah, they examine the relationship between capacity and the cost stickiness.
Thank you. Another question, we have a question, sorry, from Dr. Arania. What is the most important theory that explains cost stickiness?
Yes, it is the first one, which is it is called theory of cost asymmetry. Theory of cost asymmetry.
Thank you. A question from Nasreen Al-Malih. How is the concept of cost stickiness related to mixed costs, as they are both dealing with nonlinear cost behavior?
Okay, can you say the question again, Dr. Because I can't find it here. So
if you want A.
Okay, yeah. How is the concept of cost stickiness to mix it cost as they are both? Okay, this is a very good question, by the way. And Dr. Makram from Mansour University advised me someday that when you start to examine the cost behavior, you have to classify them. So if you examine, for example, operating costs, so all costs should be operating and should be separate from selling, general, administrative. Okay, so in the case of mixed costs, okay, yes, some costs would behave as sticky and the others as empty and the others as linear. So here the conclusions will be misleading. You have to classify the mixed cost to the main items. If you are mean here the fixed, because also we use this term to refer to the variable cost and the fixed cost. Okay, the cost stickiness is most common and associated with the fixed cost rather than the variable. Okay. So, and there are some researchers who classify between them, but if you are to examine the mixed cost, you have to classify them. You can't classify research the cost here of mixed cost as it is.
Thank you so much, Dr. Awad. Anyone have any question? Any question? Thank you so much, Dr. Awad, for your brilliant presentation, and also thank you for your time and effort. it's really a very nice topic, and I always ask myself about this topic. I know you published, I think, one paper about it before, and this is, I think, the second paper, right, Victor?
No. This is the fourth paper.
Fourth paper, okay, the same topic. All right. Thank you so much, Victor. And also, I want to thank all the audience who is joining us today. Please, if you don't mind, Dr. Awad, can you write in the chat your email so anyone have any question they can get back to you?
Sure.
Saad, Faisal, and others who have a question, you can ask Dr. Awad directly.
Yes, this is my email. Okay.
A second. All right. Thank you so much, Doctor. Any last word before we end this webinar? Dr. Awad, do you have any?
I'm sorry. No. Thank you so much for all of you and for your attendance. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for your efforts to prepare and organize such kind and informative seminars. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone in the YouTube and also in Zoom who is attending today webinar. Inshallah, next week we'll have another topic with another keynote speaker with the topic of Ayufi with Dr. Sharif Al-Halabi from Arab Open University in Kuwait branch. Inshallah, I will announce it tomorrow in all all ITAR accounts. So please attend next week webinar. Again, Dr. Awad, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And before we end, is the background of Boston? I missed it.
Yeah, so much. So hopefully one day you can come back and enjoy fun.
I can see my flat from here, dear.
Yeah, I'm living in this area, yeah.
All right, guys, thank you and see you inshallah next week.
See you. Bye. Thank you.